Ferrari is pushing. The Italian side does not accept the role of third or fourth force in this start of the 2025 Formula One Championship, and Ferrari reserve driver Antonio Giovinazzi is currently at Maranello to carry out a specific task. The Italian team is not satisfied with the performance shown last weekend at the 5.807-kilometer Suzuka Circuit in Japan, where despite giving everything, Ferrari was only able to achieve a 4th and 7th place once crossing the finish line. Too little. That is why the Ferrari technicians and engineers are working on updates ahead of the Bahrain Grand Prix. Ferrari team principal Frederic Vasseur had tried to deflect inquiries about development. The French manager had suggested a possible temporary stop because, in his view, it was essential to first carry out a massive data collection, process all the stored information, and then decide on the first aerodynamic package. Doing so without certainty of success would increase the margin of error. We talked about this 10 days ago. Ferrari cannot afford to make mistakes, as even the slightest flaw in the aerodynamic update plan could be fatal at this stage. It is very important to follow the development path correctly to make the car effective and avoid fatal slowdowns that would effectively close any hopes for the Italian side. The Frenchman knows this and has discussed it with his fellow countryman Loic Serra, Ferrari's technical director. However, considering that although the 2025 Formula One Championship is long, the points gap to the leaders is already significant, the Maranello team has decided to stick with the original plan. Therefore, despite Charles Leclerc hinting that his feelings upon arriving at the Bahrain International Circuit would differ from the pre-season testing session, the Italian team wants to push as hard as possible to leave nothing to chance. During the recent weekend that hosted the Bahrain Grand Prix, Antonio Giovinazzi was present as Ferrari's third driver. As we know, the historic Italian team has been working on an aerodynamic update package for the car for some time, in an attempt to fix the various problems the two SF-25 cars faced on track, where, in the first 3 rounds of the World Championship, almost nothing went as expected. The former Alfa Romeo driver took a direct flight to Bologna. The goal is clear: reach the Italian side's headquarters and carry out specific work on the simulator of the most successful team in the highest category of motorsport. The Ferrari engineers have already updated the simulator with the real data collected at the Suzuka Circuit in order to test the car with the new features that should be present in Sakhir in a few days. This is a full 2-day session, a true immersion, aimed at validating, at least in a theoretical sense, the new features that will be presented in Bahrain. The same goes for the need to finalize an effective baseline setup, necessary to hit the track ready without spending too much time finding the right settings for the car. Ferrari needs to make an important step forward this weekend. The SF-25 single-seater has serious balance issues, with the understeering behavior strongly limiting the car. A headache that Ferrari's engineers have quantified as a performance loss of about 0.2 per lap. Too much for a team aiming to win at least one of the 2 Formula One World Championships, as stated before the start of the 2025 season. Moreover, there is a desire to use a more aggressive ground clearance range because, although the current settings are within the project's scope, there is still performance to extract that could provide more competitiveness for the Maranello-based car. Stabilizing the downforce and making it more uniform is key in order to avoid the clear instability that has slowed the 2 cars in various driving conditions. Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc will once again be crucial in testing the updates and the setup established in the factory. McLaren has the fastest car in the field, while Red Bull's great ability to optimize the weekend, combined with Max Verstappen's extraordinary talent, makes these 2 teams very tough opponents to beat. In just 2 days, we will be back on track to comment on Ferrari's expected progress. Formula One therefore moves to a scenario that is the complete opposite of Suzuka, not only geographically. The 5.412-kilometer Bahrain International Circuit, different in layout, track surface, and environmental conditions from those visited so far, will provide important feedback on the cars, also assessing their development since testing. The highly abrasive asphalt brings the race to the center of the weekend, just a few days after a Japanese Grand Prix that was decided by the performance in the qualifying session. In the background, teams continue working on their cars, making updates and setup experiments. With an average lap speed of less than 220 kilometers per hour in qualifying, the Bahrain track differs from Suzuka, which, with its 240 kilometers per hour, represented a high-speed circuit. In contrast, The Sakhir track is filled with medium-low speed corners, shifting the focus to traction on exit and mechanical grip. There are still high-speed bends, but nothing resembling the fast direction changes seen in Australia, China, and Japan. As a result, the maximum lateral accelerations are the lowest experienced this season. As always, finding a good balance between high and low speed corners will be important, but this time, the focus will be more on the latter. The level of aerodynamic load does not drastically change, with teams sticking to an intermediate configuration. What changes is its distribution, with more emphasis on the rear axle. Teams will aim to strengthen the aerodynamics and reduce sensitivity to gusts of wind, which are particularly intense in the desert of Bahrain. Finally, the sequence of straights and hairpins highlights the importance of braking. Brembo rates the Bahrain circuit a 4 out of 5 for braking severity, in contrast to Suzuka, which was one of the least demanding in this area. In Bahrain, brakes are used for 18% of the time, and in 5 braking zones, deceleration exceeds 4.1 g. At Sakhir, the race will depend a lot on traction, but braking can be equally decisive. In the first Middle Eastern race, the emphasis will be on managing the rear tires and preventing overheating. In fact, Suzuka's race was already limited by rear tire degradation due to the new track surface on the fast corners of the first sector, but nothing comparable to what is expected in Bahrain. The Sakhir surface is the roughest and most abrasive of the entire season, increasing mechanical grip at the expense of the tire's adhesive grip, which works differently. The asphalt grains also increase hysteresis, the micro deformations in the tire that generate heat, causing overheating and degradation. Without the variable of a new track surface, as seen in the last 2 races, a 2-stop strategy is the most likely. High degradation shifts the focus from qualifying to the race, with the awareness that overtaking is possible thanks to the pit stops and 3 drag reduction system zones. Pirelli brings the hardest compounds, C1, C2, and C3, highlighting the demanding nature of Bahrain for the tires. Finally, the pressure requirements increase, set to 23 and 21 psi for the front and rear compared to 22 and 19 psi last year. Teams head into the weekend with the experience gained from the tests less than 2 months ago on the same track. Back then, conditions were rather unusual, with winter temperatures below 20 degrees Celsius, limiting the representativeness of tire data. Teams can, however, rely on numerous references, providing a good baseline for further adjustments. It is no surprise, therefore, that some teams plan to use the first free practice session to complete one of the 4 mandatory rookie sessions. Dino Beganovic will replace Charles Leclerc in Ferrari, Frederic will replace George Russell, and Luke Browning will take over Carlos Sainz's Williams. This decision is influenced by the limited representativeness of FP1, which, held at sunset, takes place on asphalt that is more than 10 degrees Celsius warmer than the conditions during qualifying and the race. Ferrari finds in Sakhir a track free from the compressions and fast corners of Suzuka, making it much less demanding on the floor's wear, allowing them to lower the ride height. The Italian side will continue working on the setup and balance, needing more rear grip, which has emerged as the weak point of the SF-25. Additionally, there will be a lot of interest regarding the debut of updates on the red car, which should significantly add to Ferrari's prospects.